Three apparently unconnected things seem to have a very deep connection. What I'm talking about is inflation, interest rates, and stock markets. These three very different things seem to have a very deep connection. Let's understand more about it, but first, a story. There was once in a farm a small mouse, and as one day the mouse was looking through, the farmer received a package, and the mouse was very excited, thinking that there was a delicious food in it for it. And alas, it discovered with horror that the farmer and his wife opened a mouse trap. The mouse was petrified, terrified. It ran out into the farm and first met the chicken. It said, Mr. Chicken, I am very, very scared. The farmer has bought a mouse trap. I am afraid that it will trap me. The chicken said, I'm so sorry, Mr. Mouse, but it's none of my concern. And the mouse felt very dejected but moved on. Next, it encountered the pig. And it said, Mr. Pig, I'm very terrified at the mouse trap that the farmer has got. The pig said, my sympathy is with you, my prayers are with you, but there's nothing more I can do. And it doesn't bother me or it doesn't concern me. Next up, the mouse encountered the cow, and it went up to the cow and said, I'm so scared, Mr. Cow, that the farmer has bought this device to trap me and kill me. And the cow says, I will do all I can, I will provide you the emotional support, but really it doesn't bother me any much. And so the dejected mouse went back into the kind of place where it was and was very afraid that it is going to kind of be caught in the mouse trap. Later that night, pitch dark, there was a sound of something being caught in the mouse trap. And the farmer's wife ran in joy. And before she switched on the light, she stepped near the mouse trap. Apparently, there was a snake whose tail had been caught in the mouse trap, and it was very angry because of the pain. And as the farmer's wife walked in near that place, it kind of bit her. The farmer then carried his wife to the hospital, got her treated, and she started running very, very high temperature. Next day, she was running very, very high temperature, and she was very feverish. And we all know what is the best remedy for fever: a hot chicken soup. So the farmer went to the garden, grabbed the chicken, and that's the end of the chicken. And the soup was served. Next day, the farmer's wife continued to be bedridden, and she was kind of still sicker more. Many of her relatives and friends visited the farm. And the farmer had to feed all of them. And the only way he could feed was to kind of kill the pig. So out he went to the farm, catch hold of the pig, and the pig gave its life to kind of feed the farmer's guests. Last but not the least, the farmer's wife never recovered and she died. And as in any funeral ritual, you have a host of the entire village was there to support the farmer. And the farmer thought this was probably a time to kind of also have the cow so that he could be able to feed the entire village. Friends, this story brings home this simple message that when anything happens, it impacts all of us, and it's very, very important for us to be observant, careful, and cautious so that we can save ourselves. Now, that's exactly the point which I'm going to talk to you about, these three elements of inflation, interest, and stock markets. Now, let's understand what is inflation. Inflation is nothing but when price of commodities, products, and services seem to go up. Typically, these go up because there is a mismatch between demand and supply. When demand is very high and supply is limited, price of that product or service goes up. Now, the way to fix this is to also increase the supply. Now, unfortunately, supply takes a longer time to fix because you will have to either import a lot of that stuff or you'll have to put up new plants to manufacture it, all of which takes a couple of months or maybe a year or two, so on and so forth. The easier way to tackle inflation is by governments to raise interest rates a bit. Now, what happens when the government raises interest rates is that things become a little bit more expensive. So people who spend choose more carefully about where they want to spend their money, and therefore demand tends to come down. So the answer to the first two linkages is that whenever inflation goes up, interest rates also tends to go up. So inflation and interest has a kind of a correlation, direct correlation. Whenever one goes up, the other also goes up. Now, that done, whenever interest rate goes up, one of the phenomenon that happens in the stock market is stock markets tend to moderate or even sometimes comes down. Now, why does this happen? This happens because of three reasons. First reason is that there are lots of people who invest money that they borrow into stock markets. Now, at some point in time, when interest rates are low, they borrow a lot of money and then they invest in stock market hoping for a good return. Now, when interest rate starts going up, they realize that their loans are getting costlier. So while they have profits here, they would like to take some of that profit and pay off these loans and close their loans. So that's why they sell in the stock market and the stock market comes down. Second up, when interest rates are really, really low, the differential of returns between the stock market and the fixed deposits are very, very high. So somebody is willing to take that risk. Instead of getting very low interest rates in FDs, he's willing to take that money and put it into stock market so that he can enjoy a much higher return. The risk is limited in some sense. Whereas when interest rates tends to go up, that differential is very, very low between the FD and the stock market. Therefore, he prefers the safety of the FD rather than the risk of the stock market. So that's the second reason why no new monies come into the stock market. Third and the last reason is that to escape very low interest rates, people who are not even equity investors sometimes find ways to invest in equity-like instruments through mutual funds. Now, when interest rate starts moving up, eventually all this money comes back. So you will find that whenever interest rate moves up, because of all these three reasons, stock market tends to moderate and come down. So interest rate and stock market has an inverse relationship. So when interest rate moves up, stock market comes down. When interest rate moves down, stock market goes up. So the relationship between inflation, interest, and stock markets is quite extraordinary, and everything has an impact with one another. That's really the message. And it's important as investors for us to keep an eye on inflation, especially in India, where we are prone to external shocks, especially because we import so much of crude. It's extremely important to have an eye on inflation, and therefore keep looking out. As inflation starts inching up, you will find that the stock markets will moderate.